Get off my property right now. The loud voice broke the quiet Saturday morning. I looked up from the water sprinkler I was fixing to see a woman in a pink robe walking fast toward me. Her finger was pointing at me and her face was angry. Security. Police. Someone call 911, she yelled loud enough to wake up everyone. There's a bad person in our building. Before you watch full story, comment down your country name, I would love to hear. Also subscribe the channel. I stood up slow, cleaning my hands, and watched Karen Whitfield. She lives in apartment 4B and pays rent late every month. Get mad at me for fixing the water system that keeps her flowers alive. In my back pocket was a folder with all the papers that show I own every part of Riverside Gardens apartments. But Karen didn't know that yet. She had no idea that the bad guy she was going to have arrested was really her boss. This was going to be fun. Let me tell you how I ended up getting yelled at by my own renter on a Saturday morning. 6 months ago, I bought the biggest property of my life, a 48-unit apartment complex called Riverside Gardens, just outside Atlanta. The old owner built the place in the 1990s and wanted to move to Florida. The price was good, the location was great, and the rent money was going to help me a lot. What the old owner forgot to tell me was that Riverside Gardens came with a big problem. An HOA president named Karen Whitfield who acted like she owned the whole place. I'm Marcus Johnson and I've been buying and fixing houses for 12 years. I started small, buying broken houses and making them nice, but I worked my way up to bigger deals. Riverside Gardens was my big plan, steady money that would let me relax more. The complex was nice. 48 apartments around a center area with a pool, walking paths, and pretty gardens. Each apartment had 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a small porch looking at either the center area or the small lake behind the building. Most of the people who lived there were good, quiet workers, young families, and old people who liked having a clean place to live. They paid rent on time, followed simple rules, and took care of the place. Then there was Karen Whitfield. Karen got herself made HOA president 3 years ago and had been running the place like a jail ever since. She made lots of crazy rules about everything from what color flowers you could plant to what time you could use your washing machine. The other people told me that Karen spent her days walking around the complex looking for problems, checking if people's grass was too long, and making everyone's life hard with her power trips. But here's the funny part. Karen was a renter, not an owner. She lived in apartment 4B and had a lease that I got when I bought the complex. And my records showed she had been late with rent for 6 months. The woman who was making everyone scared with her fake power was just a bad tenant who thought she was important. I was planning to deal with the Karen problem later, but I wanted to learn about the property first. I had been spending weekends at the complex doing fix-up work, meeting the other people, and writing down all the small repairs that needed to be done. Most people thought I was just a repair guy or worker. I wore work clothes, drove a truck, and stayed quiet while I learned about the property and its problems. That plan worked great until the Saturday morning when Karen decided I was a threat to her fake kingdom. I came early to fix a broken water sprinkler in the garden, the same garden that Karen thought was hers. The sprinkler had been shooting water the wrong way for a week, and several people complained that their cars were getting wet every time it turned on. It was an easy fix that took about 20 minutes, but Karen didn't like strange men working in her garden without asking. I said, "Get off my property," she yelled again, getting closer. I could see she was wearing fuzzy pink shoes and had her hair wrapped in a towel. She looked like she just woke up and decided to start a fight. "Ma'am, I'm just fixing the sprinkler," I said calm, holding up the broken part so she could see what I was doing. "It's been making the parking lot wet." "I don't care what you're doing," Karen screamed. "You're not allowed here. I'm the HOA president, and I'm telling you to leave right now." By now, her yelling had brought people out to watch. People were coming out of their apartments to see what was happening. Mrs. Chun from apartment 2A was looking through her window. Jake Martinez from apartment 3C was standing on his porch with his coffee, watching. "Ma'am, I have permission to be here," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I'm allowed to do repairs on this property." That's when Karen really went crazy. "Permission from who?" she asked, waving her arms around. "I'm the president of this HOA. I make all the decisions about repairs and workers. Nobody comes on this property without my okay." She took out her phone and started calling with shaking hands. "I'm calling the police right now. You're going to get arrested." I watched her make the call, still holding the broken sprinkler part. This was going to be good. 911? "Yes, I need police at Riverside Gardens apartments right now." Karen was breathing hard into the phone. "There's a person here who won't leave. He's probably here to steal things." She gave the police our address and hung up with a big smile on her face, like she had just won something. "The police are coming to arrest you," she said, looking very happy. Maybe next time you'll think twice before breaking into people's homes. Breaking in? I was fixing a sprinkler in broad daylight with tools and work clothes. But I didn't say anything. I just sat down on a bench and waited for the police to come. More people came out to watch. Word was spreading fast around the complex that Karen was having another meltdown. By the time the police car pulled up, there were about 15 people watching from their porches and windows. 2 officers got out of the car and walked over to where Karen was still pointing at me like I was a dangerous criminal. "Ma'am, we got a call about someone not leaving the property?" said the older officer. His name tag said Officer Davis. "Yes." Karen jumped in before I could say anything. "This man is on our property without permission. He refuses to leave when I told him to. I'm the HOA president, and I want him arrested for trespassing." Officer Davis looked at me, then at the sprinkler parts scattered around, then back at Karen. "Sir, can you tell me what you're doing here?" I stood up and brushed off my work pants. "Officer, I'm doing maintenance on the property. I was fixing a broken sprinkler that was flooding the parking lot." "He's lying," Karen screamed. "He doesn't work here. I would know if we hired any maintenance people. I approve all the workers." Officer Davis held up his hand to quiet Karen. "Sir, do you have any ID or paperwork showing you're supposed to be here?" This was the moment I had been waiting for. I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my folder of documents. "Officer, my name is Marcus Johnson and I'm the owner of this property," I said, handing him my driver's license and the property deed. "I bought Riverside Gardens 6 months ago. I own all 48 apartments in this complex." The silence that followed was beautiful. Karen's mouth fell open like she was trying to catch flies. Officer Davis looked at the paperwork, then at me, then at Karen. "Ma'am," Officer Davis said slowly, "are you telling me you called the police on your landlord?" Karen's face went white, then red, then white again. She started making little choking sounds like she couldn't breathe. That's not possible," she whispered. "Mr. Henderson owns this place. He's been my landlord for 3 years. Mr. Henderson sold the property to me 6 months ago," I explained. "I've been the owner since January. You've been paying rent to me through the management company." Officer Davis handed my papers back and shook his head. "Ma'am, this gentleman owns the property. He has every right to be here doing maintenance work." But Karen wasn't done making a fool of herself. "No," she yelled. "Even if that's true, he still needs my permission. I'm the HOA president. All maintenance has to go through me." That's when Jake Martinez from apartment 3C spoke up from his porch. "Karen, you're just a renter like the rest of us. You don't own anything here." Mrs. Chun from 2A came out of her apartment and walked over to us. "Officer, this woman has been making everyone's life hell for years. She thinks she owns the place, but she's just a tenant who doesn't even pay her rent on time." I looked at Officer Davis. "She's right about the rent. According to my records, Ms. Whitfield is 3 months behind on her payments." Karen looked around at all the people watching her and started to realize that she had made a big mistake. But instead of backing down, she got even crazier. "You can't evict me," she screamed at me. "I'm the HOA president. I have rights. I'll sue you." Officer Davis stepped between us. "Ma'am, I suggest you calm down and go back to your apartment. You've already caused enough trouble for one day." The younger officer, whose name tag said Officer Williams, was writing in his notebook. "Sir, do you want to file a complaint for harassment?" I thought about it for a second. Karen looked scared now, like she was finally understanding what she had done. "No complaint," I said. "But I think Ms. Whitfield and I need to have a talk about her lease agreement and her role as HOA president." After the police left, Karen went back to her apartment without saying another word. The other people slowly went back inside, but not before several of them came over to thank me. "We've been hoping someone would put Karen in her place for years," said Jake Martinez. "She's made living here miserable with all her crazy rules." Mrs. Chin nodded. "Last month she tried to fine me $200 for having too many flowers on my porch." Too many flowers. Can you believe that? I spent the rest of the day talking to different people in the complex, and I heard story after story about Karen's abuse of power. She had been making up rules that didn't exist, threatening people with fines she had no right to charge, and generally acting like a dictator. The Real HOA board, I learned, consisted of 5 people who were supposed to be elected by all the owners. But Karen had been holding fake elections where she was the only candidate, and most people didn't even know they were supposed to vote. That evening, I did some research on HOA law and reviewed Karen's lease agreement. What I found was very interesting. First, as a renter, Karen had no legal right to be on the HOA board at all. Only property owners could serve on the board, and she wasn't an owner. Second, most of the rules she had been enforcing weren't real. The actual HOA rules were much simpler and more reasonable. Third, Karen's lease had a clause about quiet enjoyment that meant she couldn't disturb other tenants. Her constant harassment and fake authority trips were clear violations of her lease. I had grounds to evict her immediately. But I decided to give Karen one chance to make things right. The next morning I knocked on her door. When she answered, she looked like she hadn't slept all night. Her eyes were red and her hair was messy. "Karen, we need to talk," I said. She let me in and her apartment was a mess. Papers were scattered everywhere, and it looked like she had been going through boxes and files all night. "I've been looking for proof that I'm still the HOA president," she said before I could say anything. "There has to be documentation somewhere." I sat down on her couch and pulled out a folder. "Karen, I need you to understand something. You were never legally the HOA president. Only property owners can serve on HOA boards and you're a renter." She stared at me like I had just told her the sky was purple. "But I've been president for 3 years, she whispered. "You've been acting like president for 3 years, I corrected. "But you had no legal authority. All those rules you've been making up, all those fines you've been charging, none of it was real." Karen sat down hard in a chair and put her head in her hands. "So everything I've been doing has been harassment," I finished. "And according to your lease agreement, harassment of other tenants is grounds for immediate eviction." She looked up at me with panic in her eyes. "You're going to kick me out?" I leaned forward. "That depends. I'm willing to give you a choice. You can resign from your fake position, stop harassing the other residents and pay your back rent. Or you can pack up and move out within 30 days. "What about the HOA?" she asked. "I'll be setting up a real HOA board with actual property owners. People who live here and own their units will get to vote on real issues that matter." Karen was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. Finally she looked up at me. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Why are you being nice to me? After what I did yesterday, you could have had me arrested." I thought about that. "Because I think you got carried away with feeling important. I don't think you meant to hurt people. You just wanted to matter." She started crying then. Not the angry, dramatic crying from yesterday, but real tears. "You're right," she said. "After my divorce I felt so powerless. When people started calling me president, it made me feel important for the first time in years. I guess I went too far." "Way too far," I agreed. "But it's not too late to fix it." Over the next few weeks, Karen kept her promise. She stopped making up rules and stopped bothering people. She even went around to different apartments and apologized to the people she had been harassing. She paid her back rent and started paying on time every month. Most importantly, she helped me organize the first real HOA election in years. 5 property owners were elected to the board, and they immediately got rid of all of Karen's fake rules. The complex became a much friendlier place almost overnight. People started talking to each other again. Kids played in the courtyard without being afraid of getting in trouble. The pool area became a place where neighbors gathered instead of a place people avoided. Karen even started dating someone, a nice guy named Bob who lived in Building C. Apparently, having less stress and more free time, now that she wasn't playing HOA dictator, made her a much happier person. 3 months later, I was fixing another sprinkler when Karen walked by with Bob. She was carrying grocery bags and laughing at something he had said. "Hi, Marcus," she called out. "How's the sprinkler?" "Just about done," I said. "How are you doing, Karen?" She smiled, a real smile, not the fake important smile she used to wear when she was pretending to be president. "Much better," she said. "It turns out life is a lot easier when you're not trying to control everyone around you." As I watched her walk away with Bob, I realized something important. Sometimes the people who cause the most problems are just people who are hurting and looking for a way to feel important. Karen had been a nightmare tenant and a fake HOA president, but underneath all that was just a lonely woman who wanted to matter to someone. By treating her with respect instead of just kicking her out, I not only solved the problem but helped her become a better person. The complex still runs smoothly today. The Real HOA board makes reasonable decisions about important things like building maintenance and shared expenses. People follow simple, fair rules that actually make sense. And Karen Whitfield? She's still in apartment 4B, but now she's known as the woman who bakes cookies for new residents and organizes game nights in the community room. Sometimes the best way to deal with a problem person is to help them find a better way to be important. If you ever have to deal with someone like Karen, remember that they're usually fighting a battle you know nothing about. That doesn't mean you have to accept bad behavior, but it might mean that kindness works better than revenge. The best victories are the ones where everyone wins in the end.